I do call it our flagship initiative, and it's relatively recent in what we've been working on. It started after Hurricane Irene blew through and flooded a lot of our mobile home parks. So a lot of the work that we do is in mobile home parks, but everything that I talk about can also be applied to any mobile home that's on private land, but also just even to custom homes. The idea of zero energy modular and the cost benefits that come with that, and the sort of out of the box solution for zero energy is applicable really for any type of building, multifamily. We have a classroom that's zero energy modular, same technology, same builder. So, you know, I want to sort of step back a second and say that we have heard a talk about affordable housing. You know, Obadiah said, do we want the last people using fossil fuel being, you know, the people who have really the least control over their housing situation? And really what he was talking about was rental housing. And Nehemiah also talked about affordable housing as rental housing. Well, the rental housing, at least one of the rental housing projects that we heard about from Pete Kennedy and Tom White was this farm worker housing. And the cost to develop that was $550,000 a unit. So sort of hold that number in your head as we go through this. And when we get to the point where I talk about costs, ask yourself whether you really think what I'm saying is too expensive to afford.
The average cost is about $350,000. The $550 is one of the most expensive that it ever developed, just to be fair.
Okay, yes.
But $350.
That is fair. Yes, and in Vermont, it's like $275,000 a unit. Okay, all right, we're up. So just to orient us, mobile homes, so the terminology, a mobile home really refers to before there was the first code for this type of housing. In Vermont, we have a lot of super, super old mobile homes. And frankly, we're not selling that many new mobile homes, you know, like a few dozen a year, less than 100. Manufactured housing refers to homes that we probably all think of as mobile homes. They still have a chassis under them, but they were built in the period after the first code that applied to those. And of course, this is a nationwide code. There's no state codes can supersede this, which is an unfortunate thing. We've been trying for many years now to have our local state building codes apply to mobile homes that are brought into the state, and we can't make any headway on that for the time being. So it was last updated in 1994, right? Imagine if your energy codes were not updated since 1994. And you probably have mobile homes. I mean, you've got people buying these homes right now and putting them in California, and that's the code that they need to meet. So modular oftentimes doesn't look like a mobile home, but it can. And but it's built, it has to meet local codes. It's also built in a factory, so it's built remotely. It's shipped to the site. It doesn't have a chassis under it, so it needs a foundation. So mobile homes are really, okay, so to use the technology correctly, manufactured homes and mobile homes are really riddled with problems. And you know, let me start with the pictures on the right. They're just made with low quality materials, which leads to really rapid degradation and a loss of value in the home. On the left here is a little notice that's in a new mobile home saying, because of energy efficiency requirements, our home is now unhealthy. Like, you can read all that, but it basically comes down to the fact that, yeah, that they're warning that the home has stuff in it that's harmful for you, and that wouldn't be a problem except that the energy efficiency people made the house too tight. So we just have an urgency about this because oftentimes, well, for one thing, mobile homes are just vulnerable in a way that our site-built homes and our more permanent housing is not, but also, particularly in Vermont and perhaps in California and across the country as well, mobile home parks are often located in less desirable locations, sometimes in flood zones. So, you know, this is actually a picture of Hurricane Irene in Vermont. So there's mobile homes and manufactured homes have often been portrayed as an affordable housing solution for people with low income. And there's a real cycle and a problem here about the link between the value of the home and poverty. Because if you say that a home that is essentially disposable, you know, going back to the question of the quality of the materials and the quality of the build, if you say that that home is an appropriate home for somebody to buy and that that's going to be their housing, you're really cutting them off from the only wealth building mechanism that we've ever really had in the US that's available to all of us. So it's that, you know, there's just an unbreakable link there with manufactured housing and poverty. So this is the percentage of housing units in each state that is manufactured or mobile homes. So in California, it's 4, relatively low, but you know, look how high it gets. Montana, 11%. Okay, so those mobile homes, the newest ones, the best ones, meet a 1994 code, and they're in Montana, right? So, you know, down in the south here, pretty brutal, super hot down there, 15% in Louisiana. So the other piece that my colleague didn't put in this presentation, this presentation is actually from my colleague Peter Schneider, is that mobile homes, partly because many of them are very, very old, you know, well beyond their life, their useful life, but also because they meet these old codes, they don't have adequate life safety features or systems in them. And so death from fires in mobile homes is very high and just rampant throughout mobile home occupancy. So let me tell you what we're doing about this. Following the Hurricane Irene event, there was just this like flood of money, right? Insurance money and recovery money, and you know, just like even foundation money. There was just all this money available, and it just became an opportunity that we didn't want to let slip away. We didn't have the codes in place to say build back better, and as I say, we can't preempt the federal codes on, you know, this housing that crosses state borders, so we're not allowed to preempt. So instead, what we did is we developed a voluntary program, and we identified a builder that would build these homes, and we developed the specification, and then we did a whole lot of work on securing funding or financing incentives, you know, getting our affordable housing partners on board with this. So Efficiency Vermont is the statewide energy efficiency utility, and this is like how we try to position ourselves as like a trusted, objective resource. In this particular program, we did a lot of post-occupancy support. So, you know, we've only been doing this for about 6 years, and so we're just constantly in this like trying to make the system better, make the homes better, make our services better. And one of the things that I've really been aggravated with is there's like we're just on speed dial for like a lot of people at this point, where they will call us on the weekends, and you know, I have to run out and like reset their stuff. And I'll tell you in a few minutes here like why that might be the case. But I've thought, like, you know, that's one of the things that we need to improve about our program and about really the home, is that it doesn't need tech support. And once I said that word tech support out loud, I realized, why not? You know, why do we have tech support for our computers and our phones, and why not for our house? You know, I don't really want to be on speed dial for dozens and dozens of people forever, but our homes are getting to the point where we're operating on such a thin margin of the excess, the waste that we can have, the waste that the house generates, that to stay within the you know, comfortable operational center of what the house is designed for, maybe we need some technical support with our homes. So we're still doing it. There's still a lot of post-occupancy support. At this point, we have about 80 zero-energy modulars around Vermont. We also have some that have gone to the surrounding states. You know, this is this is an industry that we built from whole cloth from just nothing in about 5 years, and there's only one builder building in our initiative right now. So I think this is really a tremendous growth and a lot of success to have gone to 80 homes at this point. So most of them have gone to income qualified families, which we define as 80% of the median income for their county. Most of them, although maybe just like a little more than half, are in an ownership situation. And at the end of the presentation, I'll talk about 3 developments that are primarily rentals. And then most of them, but only really a little more than half, are in parks. So mobile home parks. We so far have only worked with parks that are co-opt, so owned by the residents, or owned by an affordable housing developer. And we just cannot make headway with privately owned parks. I don't know if I'll have more time to talk about why that is, but it's really a we can only deal with like a certain segment of the mobile home parks in Vermont. Okay, so cumulatively, this is what the impact of it has been, and it hasn't really been that many years. So cumulatively, we're going to do a lot more than this. But these are all electric homes, and they're beating our state energy code by about probably on the order of 60%. And most of the homes, although not all of them, have solar, so they're pretty close to zero energy, I should say. Okay, so what do we think of as affordable? Well, it starts with zero energy, and so this is what the elements of the zero energy parts of the house are. Those are triple glazed windows. They're vinyl. This is squarely aimed at an affordable market, and so we found a manufacturer that makes this as a U.21 window. We don't really care what the solar heat gain coefficient is because it's Vermont, but also because these homes will get oriented any which way, and we can't design for passive solar gains. So it's a really high performing window for our climate, and the wall is a double stud wall. Can people perceive that? It's a 10-inch wall, and it's built with two 2x4s. And so not only is it a whole lot of insulation, it's also got thermal, no thermal bridging around the whole envelope. The zip system keeps it super tight. I wish we had better details here about the air sealing. I mean, that's the part that I get the most excited about, is like they're really super airtight. The tightest one of these that I measured was 1,000 square foot home that was 46 CFM 50. Oh, thank you. Not that I personally achieved that, but yeah, I mean, at least I'm among people who appreciate what that means. So at 46 CFM 50, you really cannot vent a 250 CFM clothes dryer to the outside. So we have condensing or heat pump clothes dryers. All the appliances come with the home, including the washer and dryer, which is pretty unusual for any kind of new home purchase. But of course, the refrigerator is Energy Star, and all the lighting is efficient LED lighting. The air source heat pump is a cold climate air source heat pump, and the whole home, like 1,000 square foot mobile home, which is kind of the standard out of the box standard length, is heated with a 9,000. I think they're using a 12,000 BTU an hour cold climate air source heat pump, where the design loads are somewhere, like -6, -10 degrees F. So the loads are really super low. The fresh air system is the SERV. The SERV is a balanced ventilation system that has a heat pump for heat recovery. So it's not passive heat exchange that's recovering the heat and the energy. It's actively drawing energy out of the exhaust air and heating the indoor air warmer than the ambient temperature in the house. So it's kind of like it's a ventilating heater and a ventilating cooler. It's distributed, so it's putting fresh air into the bedrooms, whereas the heat pump is not putting warm or cool air into the bedrooms. So this becomes like an auxiliary, it's sort of part of the heating system. And it's really the purpose of the service to be used in homes that have point source heating, and it circulates air around the house. It also is demand controlled ventilation. So when the carbon dioxide level goes up, or when the VOCs go up, then it ventilates. So there's really a lot of energy savings there in not ventilating when there's nobody home, but also making sure that people have fresh air. And I'll have a graph here in a second showing you air quality indoors.
Can I ask the relative energy consumption of one heater versus the other? Not somebody still getting main heater, that is small heater.
Yeah, so the heat pump here is pretty small. It's like maybe 5,000 BTUs an hour, and it's not really a cold climate. Like, it won't heat cooler than I think 20 degrees. But when it's in ventilation mode, it's dealing with house air. So it's dealing with 70-degree air. So it can always do heating when it's ventilating. And it also does this recirculation thing, which is how it helps the air source heat pump keep the bedrooms warm when the bedrooms are at the extremities of the home. But it can't, all it does when it's really, really cold out, all it does during recirculation is just recirculate. The heat pump's not working at that point. And in terms of efficiency, you know, it's not a heating device, it's really a ventilation device, so they don't have really comparable numbers. It's like a little bit less efficient than, you know, that's a Mitsubishi, and they're super efficient.
I think it's service like a COP of 2 point a little bit, and those might be COP of 3.5 or 4. Yeah,
I mean, right, so COP is a point in time number, and I just wouldn't, I wouldn't want to really make a guess at how it's really performing seasonally. I mean, the main thing is that it cannot function as the sole source of heat. And then, you know, there's zero energy. So they're covered in solar. You can see in the background there. It's a very typical mobile home for Vermont. It's fallen to pieces. So this is across our whole program, people are pretty much $0. Now, our current net metering regulations don't allow the solar credit to cover like the fees and whatnot. It can only cover the energy part of the energy bill, of the electric utility bill. So, you know, most of this is like non-recoverable costs. So, you know, people are mostly zeroing out. I think people probably want to know like how much energy these are using. And I don't think I have a slide in here about that, because it really varies a lot. You know, we have a farm family that's living in one, and I think they have 6 or 7 kids. It's kind of hard to tell how many kids they have, because they're always like, oh, that one's living with so-and-so, or they're in college, and in the summertime, the like household gets really big. And we just have some really, really big families, and then we have some single folks that live on their own, and they're extremely frugal. I can't really see what that says, but I saw that you put something up. Okay, thanks. So what was this? This is the durability piece. So we really feel like the affordable, for something to be affordable is really more than just about the energy, and it's more than just about the purchase, the price, the first cost. So the durability aspects here, and you just have to think of this in comparison to a manufactured home. This is built with the standard materials that you would find in a site-built home, even in a custom home. It's got 5/8 inch sheetrock. It's the insulation in the walls is blown fiberglass, which, I don't know how common that is in your world. It's not very common in my world, but the difference in weight between blown, dense packed cellulose and blown fiberglass was enough to, for the largest homes, just enough that it can be picked up. And with cellulose, it would have been too heavy to pick up. But in smaller boxes, it's like enough of a weight difference that they can use a smaller crane and save like $2,000 on the delivery of the home. So it's really built with the latest in building science. So we're keeping track of things like, condensing surfaces. Most of these are on crawl spaces. We've instrumented a bunch of crawl spaces and just kept track of how they're doing. We're keeping track of things like where there's problems with truss uplift and what we're going to do about that. So 5 years in, we haven't ironed out all the kinks, but the intention here really is to provide people with a home that will grow in value and become the basis for wealth building and a path out of poverty. And then the healthy piece, you know, all other things being equal, having a child with health issues will push a family into poverty. And so, you know, we don't want the housing that we're out there promoting as being zero energy to be a contributor to a family falling further into poverty. So we're the serve, which is the ventilation system, is, you know, the sort of cornerstone of all of this. But in addition to that, we're choosing materials very carefully. The home does meet the Indoor airPLUS standard from EPA, with a few exceptions. There are parts about the design here that just don't fit neatly into national standards, and so we had to, you know, really advocate for the program and for the this housing type with the EPA and the DOE. There's our serve again. And here we go with some of our measurements. I believe that each of these charts is just for a single home. The green bars, the vertical bars, are when the home is ventilating. So you can see that it responds to these spikes in both carbon dioxide and VOCs. So we get a spike. It could have been a cooking incident. It could have been somebody came in with perfume. It could have been somebody took a shower. And, you know, and then the air quality sort of returns below the 1,000 parts per million mark. And, you know, we chose 1,000 parts per million as a threshold. Some families choose to set it lower, so it's ventilating more aggressively. And in some situations, we had to set it higher because it was just inducing so much of an energy burden. There was one family that lives next door to somebody who burns wood, and the outside air quality is low enough that it was not helpful that the ventilation system would kick on when things happen in the house. So we had to set the threshold differently, and that was, you know, a real unfortunate thing for that family. So by and large, I'd say they're doing great on air quality. They're very healthy. As I said, the material selection is careful. This one happens to have bamboo floors, which are like, you know, a few years ago, bamboo floor was like the it material, but that's not why they chose the bamboo floor. All the materials are, you know, CARB certified, and the paint is a non-VOC. And there's, you know, this component also about just creating a home that can reduce people's stress. This has really nothing to do with daylighting, but I spent a year staffing a model home of one of these zero energy modulars in a mobile home park. And so I would always have neighbors coming by and dropping by just to like talk to me. And more than one person there relayed to me that the stress of them just worrying about their home, when was the, you know, roof going to have to be replaced? When, you know, when was the furnace going to have to be replaced? When were they, was their foot going to go through the bathroom floor? That would really weigh on them all the time. And so, you know, having a home that really feels like a sanctuary is, you know, a piece of this whole thing. They're comfortable. They're really very comfortable. So this is actually from this past winter. We had some extremely cold periods, and for the most part, the temperature in the home is like rock steady, as outside it's just all over the place. There are a couple little dips there where the temperature dropped really low. That's our outdoor temperature, and these are average daily temperatures. So at night it was, you know, could have been 15 degrees colder than that. So it's something that we're continuing to work on, is really trying to get the comfort where people need it to be. They're built custom, even though they look like mobile homes. So if somebody needs it to be accessible, it can be made accessible. Okay, so are they affordable? This is the pitch that we're making. Yeah, they're more expensive. There's no doubt, right? You buy a like manufactured home now and you can get a pretty low mortgage, although frankly this includes things like 8 or 12% interest rate. You know, you can get your mobile home financed on the lot just like you do with a car. And this, like, the mortgage is high. These are much more expensive, but the total cost of ownership is lower, and that's, you know, that's how we're taking this around the state and convincing people to support this effort. So this is our builder partner, Vermont. These are the homes that they've created to be mobile home replacements. So they fit on a mobile home lot. Some of these are actually 2 stories. The one at the bottom is 2 stories. Some of them are 2 boxes. You can see there's a really small price difference between like a 1 box and a 2 box, because the second box is just empty space. It's just bedrooms. All the expensive stuff is in the first box: the kitchen, the bathrooms, and the mechanicals. So, you know, I'd say like the 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 72-footer, $152,000. That's the one that we sell the most of. It's a lot more than mobile home. This is like where a lot of the cost breakout is, and I just wanted to point out a couple things that might be different in different climates. So, for instance, a frost-protected foundation, you know, $30,000 is like a full basement. But we also have, this is particularly important for very old mobile home parks where they've got the like infrastructure just running all over under everything. We just really can't dig for a crawl space or a basement, that there are these helical piers that just get driven down into the ground. And then the house sits on like 8 steel posts. And I really like that. I don't like to see a skirt around a home because I'd really rather know what's going on under there than just hide the space under there and let animals move in. But, you know, the solar, in a different climate, the solar would be a different size. The house would just be cheaper to build. You know, my guess is if you moved the house that we're selling for $152,000, if we moved that to a much milder climate, like here, you could probably save $35,000 on the build. And then we have all these other incentives that that we really felt like. This is the part where I want you to remember the what is it? 250,000. What's the average? $350,000 per affordable apartment, right?
For affordable subsidized.
Right. So, you know, we talked to our affordable housing partners in the state, and we said, like, okay, that's what you're paying to make an affordable housing unit. What we're talking about is giving people an ownership option, affordable ownership, right? So we're not just talking about affordable housing as apartments, and that's how we got this money available from all kinds of different sources. So I'm going to have to skip through this part because I want to, there's some homes. This one is on a trailer. We drive that around the state and go to state fairs and stuff like that so people can check them out. Those are custom homes. I want to talk about a couple of these developments. I've already been given the 1%. It's 2 stories. No, what are you seeing? This is, oh, yeah, right. Oh, right. Yeah, yeah. Right, colors also. That's the builder. He chooses all the colors. So I just want to talk about these developments really quickly. This is the only mobile home park in our biggest city, which is Burlington, where I live, and it is like better than 50 years old, the mobile home park. And there's all these lots in there. This is an empty lot. That's not a side yard. That's a lot to put a house in. There are all these lots that are really short, and they just don't make mobile homes that are that size anymore. So these are custom built homes, and as a result, we put a zero energy modular in there. And man, is that cute? That's a great looking house. And you know, it's surrounded by homes that are like 40 or 50 years old. These things have a life of like maybe 20 or 25 years, a useful life, the mobile homes that are around them. This was a full redevelopment of a mobile home park. There's this lovely river that's right there. And these are all rentals, and it was redeveloped by an affordable housing developer. And then, oh, this is what it looked like before. It was like a ton of remediation because the kerosene tanks had leaked and there was asbestos in all the homes. And that development has battery storage in every one of the homes. So the utility is using these as a deployable resource to manage load. And then this is a mobile home park that is large, but had a bunch of, and it's owned by a mobile home or an affordable housing developer, and there were all these empty lots. So instead of redeveloping the whole thing, they just did an infill thing. So I think at this point there's 13 or 15 zero energy modulars in among all these other existing mobile homes, and those are rentals also. Can I take one more minute? Yeah. Sorry, thank you. So this picture is here in Arcata. And I was walking around early yesterday morning, just kind of thinking about all the houses and like, wow. Oh, you did?
Yeah, but they did put the solar on. and it's built to HUD code.
Solar.
The
Okay.
whole thing's supposed to be zero net energy, it's all electric, but no. We ran out of money. It's a recession. And I proved it on the city council.
Okay, so that, but it's manufactured housing, right?
Yeah,
It's built to the HUD
not
code.
the best,
Built-
HUD code,
yes.
the issues.
So I was thinking like, wow, these houses don't have overhangs, and look, the road slopes, the yard slopes toward the house, and the siding is degraded. And then I come on this, I'm like, well, this is, yeah, this is it. And I'm standing in the dark, and I hear this, hello. And there's a woman sitting on her front porch. And I walk over, and she starts telling me. I said, I'm really interested in all these houses. And she starts telling me about all her house, her house and the neighborhood. And she said, but the quality's really bad. And she started relaying to me all these things that had gone wrong with the house. And the story about her partner has Alzheimer's and they can't pay for the repairs. And she said, but it's a great community. Everybody here knows each other, really look out for each other. And this is a story that I repeatedly hear about mobile home parks. People like living in them. There's a great sense of community there that nobody wants to be disrupted. So we can't come in and just knock everything down and build an apartment building. That's not what people want. So I just thought it was fascinating that here you have, she told me the whole story in like 8 minutes. The entire story I just told you, she just told me in 8 minutes. $55,000 compared to my $152,000, right? It's a lot more expensive, but consider that it's an ownership option. It can be a path out of poverty. It's a whole lot less expensive than building apartments. And there's zero energy. So thank you.
Okay.